Thanks for visiting our channel again. He brought to light an old, troubling feud with Agnetha ABBA's cherished star in only a few terrifying words. In addition to shattering her flawless image, his words exposed a depth of evil that nobody was prepared to face. Punk and pop music had an uncomfortable but brief collision in the late 70s, which you've definitely heard about. Elvis Costello was slicing through the mainstream with his acid tongue and razor-sharp lyrics, while ABBA were at the height of their financial success. However, everything changed on a single night in 1979. Think about this: a spectacular London industry party with champagne flowing and egos battling under the hazy lights. Costello and Agnetha's lives, which were completely unrelated, clashed at that point. It started off as little chat, but then the big time arrived. According to rumors, Elvis, who is known for being forthright, mocked ABBA's polished image and accused Agnetha of being a puppet. Silence fell upon Thean. Allegedly, Agnetha's face turned pale, and she subsequently lost her composure. The nuclear tension was palpable, yet no one listened to her retort. Out she swung. He failed to adhere. After that, they remained silent. But for decades, the events that transpired in that room lingered. Costello acknowledged that the comments and what he saw in Agnetha that night contributed to the bitterness that lingered in his heart. Behind cold control, a woman hides in the shadows of security. She was too delicate and perfectionist to tolerate criticism as a performer. Despite her fame and fortune, this diva exuded an aura of profound isolation, and that was only the start. The stalker and Agnetha's band weren't the only people with whom she had problems. Many were terrified by her notoriety offstage. She had disagreements with influential people in the music business throughout the years, especially while she was performing solo. Behind closed doors, producers discussed her control issues in whispers. There was tension during the recording sessions, and several people left the studio in tears. Others just wouldn't work with her again. She claimed she didn't want to share the limelight or give up her vision. Thus, she turned down big collaborations like a supposed duet with Phil Collins. Independence meant something to some. Some others thought it was utterly haughty. She was accused of being uncaring and distant by multiple famous Swedish artists. Within the business community, terms like impossible, paranoid, and emotionally unstable circulated. In February of 2004, there was a particularly dramatic meltdown. The much-anticipated return album from Agnetha, My Coloring Book, was released after a long period of silence. People had very high expectations. After agreeing to do press interviews and promising a promotional tour of Europe, she vanished without a trace. That a rumor has it that Jay is going to remix it again, and I'm hearing it in the studio. Because that sounds so fantastic. I can't believe he's going to be so stupid as to do that. An abridged version of it was played for me. Everything was canceled after only a few brief appearances. I don't understand. There will be no farewell. It was a really angry label. Investors had put up millions. Colleagues were left frantic. Word on the street became rumors, anxieties, emotional breakdowns, and yelling matches in hotel rooms. Relatives on the inside said she barricaded herself and wouldn't come out. Reportedly, she sobbed uncontrollably and screamed, "I can't do it," as she collapsed backstage. She apparently threatened to destroy the contract and retire from music altogether at one point. It was a canceled tour that the public watched. Those on the inside witnessed a woman's downfall. Once more, Agnetha was already embroiled in a new type of conflict, one within her own band, behind the dazzling stage performances and harmonious vocals. Her marriage to Joran Oliveos had crumbled a few years before, culminating in an ugly and public divorce. Imagine yourself pretending everything is fine while you sing songs about heartbreak with your ex-husband standing only feet away, night after night. Obviously, it wasn't. Hidden from view, the anxiety was palpable. Benny Andersson and any liberated Lyngstad attempted to guide ABBA in the right direction, but Agnetha became more and more aloof. The fissures were already large when she refused to fly because of her fear of planes. It was more than simply stress that caused her to miss promotional tours and studio sessions and to be repeatedly called difficult by their management. Her emotional stability was deteriorating by 1981. Imagine a mother who is conflicted about being a superstar. Despite the outpouring of support for her, Agnetha was secretly struggling with feelings of shame and hopelessness at being separated from her children. During an unusual Swedish interview, she revealed that she and her daughter would both cry every time they departed from home. She was troubled by it. She finally stepped away from the limelight entirely, canceling engagements and adopting bizarre schedules in an effort to be closer to her children. Something sinister, though, lurked behind that withdrawal as well. The Stockholm media was abuzz in 1982 with rumors of a breakdown that had occurred shortly before ABBA's unofficial divorce. According to her friends, Agnetha went into a delusional spiral, spent days alone in her house, and eventually became scared of being in public. Her world was collapsing around her, and no one could understand the depth of her pain. Agnetha didn't merely withdraw once ABBA ended. She disappeared. She sought refuge in the desolate Swedish countryside, assuming that being alone would provide her with the necessary protection. Away from the din of the stage lights and the cheers, he opted for the peace and quiet of the forest. However, the press remained steadfast. Their hunger for scandal, a glance, or any sign of the missing golden girl drove them to pursue her like hounds. Nobody ever got peace. Instead, treachery took place. The brief romance she had with investigator Torbjörn Brander became a media sensation as she trusted him during a vulnerable period. She was in love one minute, and then her every intimate detail was revealed to the world through tabloids. It was like he betrayed her forever. Bedroom details, anecdotes, and photographs. There was a cost to everything. Agnetha felt threatened and ashamed. Tragically, her trust was shattered, and her heart was crushed. Unfortunately, things were about to go really ugly. Next, Gert van de Graaf walked in. From being a mere spectator at first, he eventually became an indistinguishable figure among the throng. His awe turned into a terrifying fixation. He trailed behind her, drew close to her, and wrote her letters filled with love and illusion. Her windows were his eyes. Frightened, she contacted the authorities. He reappeared despite the restraining order. Time and time again, like a ghost, he evaded her efforts to exercise. He always seemed to find a way to get past her defenses. She began to pace the floor at night, check each lock twice, and sleep with the lights on. The haven that had been there for so long turned into a jail. Silence, alarms, and gates around her land, making it feel like a prison. Whispers and darkness engulfed her reality. Envision yourself as a well-known celebrity all over the world, yet constantly hoping no one would notice you. Once beloved by millions, Agnetha now lived a reclusive life, untouched by society and consumed by its specter. A life controlled by terror had replaced hers. She had become a global celebrity. In reality, though, she was crumbling delicately behind the scenes. Agnetha kept a delicate smile on display. Something was falling apart underneath the veneer of her carefully scripted interviews and staged appearances. She felt herself falling apart under the weight of the world's expectations that she remain flawless. She was no longer in the limelight by February 2008. The days of red carpets, interviews, and reunions are over. No sound at all. Rather than being diva-like, it was a matter of survival. It was too much for her. Close friends spoke in whispers about her panic episodes, which left her gasping for air and the many tears that flowed during the night. She was unresponsive when called. Everything remained locked. Members of the same family were frequently kept at arm's length. Even chatting with total strangers had grown too much for Agnetha to stomach. Even while everyone adored her singing, nobody paid attention to her suffering. Ironically, her mythology only became more dazzling as she dwindled into obscurity. The image of the naive blonde from ABBA stuck to the hearts of fans worldwide. The correspondence included poetry, drawings, flowers, and letters. They didn't know the woman behind the curtain, Agnetha, so Tom camped outside her estate trying to catch a glimpse. A lady whose history would not let go of her, who was wounded by fame, who had been deceived by love. She was now attempting to make it in the pitch black after having stood beneath the brightest lights before. So, Elvis Costello didn't only cast aspersions. He tore the curtain off an illusion that had been there for decades when he finally came clean this year. Behind Agnetha's beautiful look and crystal-clear voice was a woman caught in a perpetual state of conflict, and he made the world see it in just a few words. Not only with the media and her immediate circle, but also with herself. The confession made by Costello wasn't merely idle chatter. After years of wearing a porcelain mask, it finally cracked. A facade constructed from cheers, tunes, and an oppressive stillness that cried out "at" that moment. It all clicked. She isolated herself due to her breakdowns, disappearances, and walls. His words resounded like a death sentence for a life consumed with gimmicks, terror, and long-forgotten hurt. As a result, several let out a gasp. News reports were flooded. Feelings among fans were mixed. It wasn't shocking, though, to those who had seen her disappear from the spotlight. It was authoritative proof. Verification that the stunning performer, who previously captivated audiences on the greatest stages in the world, had been quietly screamed at the entire time. Maybe everyone is finally prepared to see past the fame, fortune, and glitz, seeing Agnetha for what she really is, a sorrowful and genuine figure, rather than a pop icon. Somehow, she managed to stay alive through a once enchanted story that gradually devolved into a terror from which she never really recovered.